Jamie, Steve, all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. I want to welcome everyone to the Office Hours webinar for the first day of February. Happy February, everyone. Before we get started, just got to do a little bit of the legal disclaimer here. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that the information that we share with everyone here today is strictly educational. Please do not misinterpret this as a solicitation to buy or sell anything. We are a publisher of information, not a registered investment advisor or broker-dealer. Okie dokie. So now that that's gone, we can get started here.
Hello.
So say hello, Steve.
Hello, Steve. Saying hello. I was feeling left out there. I hadn't spoken yet, so I'll be here helping Jamie with our bullet point presentation. I'll be chiming in when I feel something needs to be addressed, and here to help answer questions as well. So here we go.
All right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, since February is upon us and January is in the past, we have been archiving data on the overall performance of the AI channel, which is Holly, and we're going to share a little bit of that information with you today. We're also going to, talk about what happened with Holly today, the strategies involved, the trades, a couple of trade around opportunities, and then some upcoming features that are still in beta but hopefully will be folded out to you guys in the upcoming short term. All right, so let's do this. Now, I noticed that Scott had snuck it in there already, but I've got another version over here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of pull this one over here. And hold on, actually, let's just use that example that Scott has. Well, I take that back. So if we're looking at this chart right here, let me just make this go full screen. What you're seeing is the first day in the cycle is February 29th, and then this is all of January. So what we have here is how the AI, taking all of its trades combined and its profit and loss each day, how that's faring against the S&P. Obviously, the S&P is the blue line. This is how Holly's performance, this is the performance of the S&P. And so what I'd like to point out here is, everything looks pretty good here. Now, we did have this one day right here, which, hurt us pretty bad, but that was more of a programmatical error. That was just simply some information had gotten, misconstrued on a symbol list. So, but those are the lumps that we take. Those are the lumps that we take when we're in developmental stage, all right? So when we look at this and we see that it's really only the first official month, this gives us lots and lots of optimism, all right, because we're still getting the kinks worked out, and trying to throttle the trade count to a manageable level, and then at the same time, make sure that the strategies showing up are the most statistically weighted for each and every day. So, hopefully we're going to avoid days like this in the future, but we have to include it because, to make the data set complete here. So, here we are the first day of February, and I'm sure all of those who had the AI channel were watching this morning and didn't really start off like we had hoped, but hey, whether it's a statistically weighted system or one of the best traders on the planet, everybody's got to take their licks and they're losing days. So here we are looking at the total for today. She finished up down 2 and change, not quite 2.5 points, or not quite 20 basis points. So, as Steve and I were discussing earlier, typically what we do every morning is we'll sort the list of strategies that made the collective quantitative combine. We'll typically sort by the win percentage and kind of just take a look at what's in the hopper. What's been coming up a lot here lately is the trade count, and we can see today that we had 16, 18, 29, 30, about 34, 35 trades generated for today's total, total trade count. And what's been coming up a lot here lately is, how do I know which strategies to pay attention to? And so what we were, kind of throwing around earlier and what we've kind of been doing is kind of trying to get a feel for that, all right? And so, for example, we can see here today, all these strategies did extremely well with the exception of the one that spit out the most trades. Marathon, not a sprint, kicked out 15 trades and just didn't do too good today. I mean, that's basically what kind of kept today from being a positive day. But bottom line is, nobody here is a fortune teller, and we can't predict, you know, with extreme accuracy, well, let's do this or let's do that tomorrow. However, a general rule of thumb, a couple of ways that you can help give yourself a little parity and a few guidelines here. There's a couple of different ways we can go about it. The first one is just what we typically do when we're working with statistical probability. You could always take the highest performing one and the lowest one and nix them. And you can see today, if you would have done that, it would have made quite a difference in the trade performance. Or over time, as each and every one of you, just like myself and Steve and everybody else that engages with the AI, obviously we've seen a lot of strategies make the cut. You know, some of them are showing up a lot more than others and outperforming. So when you see those constant performers show up, a little light should go off in your head and say, okay, I'm really going to pay attention to this one. I'm not going to rule this one out. But if I right-click right here and say view the trades only for that strategy, and then so these are the trades only for marathon, not a sprint today. Let's make sure we're sorting by the time. Mm-hmm. So a good rule of thumb as well is this. You know, there's no need to jump in headlong. So what you can do typically, and this seems to work pretty well, is if the first three trades that a strategy spits out are not really going the way that they should, and at the same time we're always watching the indexes, everybody always typically is watching the great magnet known as the SPY. So, you know, if 3 shorts, 4 shorts get spit out in the first 30 minutes and they're not working, and then we see this bottoming tail, you know, put in on the SPY, then, you know, of course, as we always say, Holly's really good at entries from a statistical viewpoint, statistical standards, but she can't tell when markets are bottoming or, you know, things of this nature. So a good rule of thumb is if you're watching, watching the AI channel, the first 3 trades out of a strategy are not conducive, and it's looking like the market is not going to be conducive for that type of strategy, well then that's going to give you a little insight as to how much, you know, how many trades or, you know, how much precedence you should give to that one strategy each and every day.
Let's actually take that, you know, to the second level and notice that these particular trades on this strategy. Oops. Thank you for, you know, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. Go ahead. Yeah, I still want to see that bottom window there. And so, sure. What Jamie has done here is he has sorted the win percentage column. So coming into today, down there on the bottom one, win percentage. This power hour long, well, you can see 0 trades. It didn't trigger today. But I can tell you what, if you know coming into today that after Holly's marathon overnight session of crunching over 1 million trades and giving these things a score, she brought this to the attention and said, hey, this thing has a hot hand. Doesn't mean it's going to trigger. We never had a trigger on the actual trade, but coming into today, this thing had a really nice win percentage of 75.6%. So, you know, if that's what's been spit out in the morning, then maybe you're a little bit more likely to maybe double and stick your toe in the water with some of those strategies versus the opposite, which would happen today. Mr. Marathon, not a sprint, coming in, he barely made the cut. 59.8% win percentage on the bottom down there, I believe, is the bottom line floor cutoff. I mean, this thing barely made the cutoff. So I think it's important to separate the wheat from the chaff and recognize that those trades all come from a parent strategy. And if that parent strategy is coming into the day limping at 59.8%, well then maybe I'm not going to want to give it as much credibility, especially if the first 2 or 3 trades it's spitting out, like Jamie said, are not working, and then they're shorts, and then the market starts to turn. Holly is a gray box and not a black box, meaning Holly does not get into trades and watch the market and manage the trades. It gives you a good risk-reward management of a stock to use. It also gives you an optimized time frame to hold. And we'll get into maybe a couple of specific trades here in a moment. That never necessarily means that you have to override what you're seeing in the market and follow her advice to a T. What if it was a long and Holly says, well, we're going to exit this trade in 5 minutes here, and all of a sudden the S&Ps are breaking out. They're breaking out of a range that you see as a trader. Well, again, gray box means you have trader's discretion. You have to keep your hat on as a trader. And if you're seeing something that might override maybe a probabilistic exit strategy, go for it. And I'll even talk about, as we get to a specific trade later, you don't always have to sell the whole amount. But the reason I chimed in here on Stepped on Jamie was just to remind people to take a helicopter view of the strategies. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 strategies coming into today. Go ahead and sort your AI strategy window based on win percentage. So you know ahead of time, hey, if I see power hour long or sunrise mover coming out, I'm more confident to jump on that one. But this one that barely made the cut, marathon not a sprint, I might have to give this one a little bit of time to prove to me that this thing really is going to work today. So we never said we're selling a 100% green light, 100% red light system. There is no such thing. That doesn't exist. We're working with probabilities, and even at a 75% probability, 25% of your trades, they're still not going to work out. So you're going to have to keep your trader's hat on and manage risk once a trade is taken. She's only giving us high probability trades to take. There's no guarantee, but we do have the wind at our back on these things.
Yeah, well said, Steve. And, I might add, I just threw this little arrow up here so everybody could see, these are 5-minute bars. This was 30 minutes into the open, right? So if you're monitoring the strategy, these 3 trades were spit out before we got there, right? So you're watching for 3 trades. You're like, well, now we're in this bar at 7 to 7:05. We started this bar, and that bottoming tail comes in. That's where the human has to come in, because the thing I'd like to point out here is the statistical probability is the statistical probability here coming into today. However, we all know it's about timing. It doesn't matter if the statistical probability on a short strategy is strong. If the market is doing this, you're going to be fighting upstream. You're going to be swimming upstream. All right. So just wanted to try to share a little bit of the, from the human perspective, which strategies to pay attention to. So if you were just watching the first 3 today, maybe you did take this one or this one, but through watching the SPY and seeing this little bottoming pattern here, then it might have changed your mind and go, okay, I'm not really going to take every trade that comes through this one today. I might focus on the longs, which brings up another good thing about what Holly is. As Steve said, it's not a magic money machine. That does not exist. But what it's doing is it's feeding you play after play after play that is statistically weighted to go our way, assuming market conditions are right. So, having said that, if we take a look, Steve, you want to go over this this trade around today on the flow?
Yeah, and here's where a little bit of trader psychology and experience.
See, you got what I need, not float on. All right. So.
BGTI.
Right. So, yeah, okay. That was it.
And that one was recommending, if you can highlight the point maybe on the chart where it was initiated and where Holly said her opinion was to trade out of it and take the exit.
Right, so we can see here from you got what I need right here the whole time it was geared for 60 minutes, optimized for a 60-minute hold.
Okay.
So this is the entry bar right here.
Yep.
So 1013, and the high of that bar was 1065 and the low was 1011. So it got it right here, pretty much in the lower quarter of that bar.
Okay.
And this was cut out for a 60-minute hold. So if we go from 645 over to, well, let me make sure I'm on the right bar. Yeah, 645. And so exit right here.
Right about
That's
there.
where it got the 26 cents.
All right. Well, let's put our trader's hat on here. Not a huge pullback. Definitely a little bit of money left on the table, but the trade is still green. What were the spiders doing at the time? Let's look at that same point in time and maybe get an idea of if we were starting to see some recovery in the market or what the spiders were maybe trying to show us.
745 on the SPYs, right here.
Okay. And the exit time in the SPYs were roughly, that's the exit time is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay. So basically, we didn't have any large red candles trying to scare us out of it, just kind of some consolidation. So here's a little bit of psychology as a trader I've learned over the years. When you're selling a winning position, you're basically satisfying two emotions. And as traders, we all know emotions can get the best of us, and we try to leave them behind. That's what Holly's so good about, is no emotion whatsoever. She doesn't remember being stung by a trade and remember not missing a trade. It's all statistics. And so if we could only be like that, we'd all be better traders, but we're not. We're human. We're wired. And one of the things we're wired for is to fear a trade that was in the money coming back against us and not being able to have anything show for it. That's we can't help it. We're wired that way, when in fact we should be wired to be scared, not that it's going to pull back and take money away from us that we once had. We should be wired to be scared that we're going to leave some on the table and miss out on a bigger move, because those are the chips that start to add up at the end of the month, at the end of the year. So there's a little trick you can do, and it's great because it does satisfy your emotions, the emotions of fear and the emotions of greed. If you ever considered selling half of a stock, you're not quite sure, should I hang on to this? Should I not hang on to this? I don't want it to pull back against me. It's a horrible feeling when you've had a winning trade go to zero, but I don't want to miss out on it. So selling half in so many instances can actually satisfy both of those demons at once, and actually makes you feel a little bit better. It's emotional, because once you've bagged half the profit, you can't lose on this trade, because more than likely you're not going to let that trade go negative anyway, but you still have a chunk on your screen to let work for you and turn your head, and hopefully it goes higher, and you're going to outperform what the gray box artificial intelligence had maybe suggested. So the point is, there's no black and white hard rule. If Holly says she's going to exit in an hour and you're looking at this going, well, my trading hat, my gut feeling's telling me this thing could go higher, I don't want to lose on it, sell half. Selling half is always a great way to keep you in the game, lock in some profits on a winner, not on a loser. On losers, we want to define our risk and get out and move away. But on winners, sometimes we're a little early. And in this case, selling half would have satisfied that fear demon of pulling back and losing what you once had in profit, but at the same time satisfying that greed demon that lets you stay in the trade for a little bit longer. And of course, you do want to take a look at the market. If you're going into a Fed meeting like we had last week, just crazy volatility, you got to know these things. You got to know ahead of time, well, maybe I don't want to keep this thing because the Fed meeting minutes are coming out and it's always super volatile. I know it's going to get volatile at 2 o'clock Eastern time. I better just go ahead and sell it all. But on a day like today, when there's no news coming out, the market's trending up, holding its own, there's nothing wrong with selling half. So that's your psychological trader tidbit for the day. There's nothing wrong with selling half of a winning position when it's going in your direction and letting the other half try and work for you.
Right, right. And so, looking at the SPY, once we had these little down candles here and we refused to go any lower, that's always a pretty good sign that gives me, as well as Steve and a lot of other people, confidence in our longs. Especially when we saw marathon, not a sprint, pumping out not so good of results in the early morning. It's a way to, aggregate different bits of information so that you are better equipped to make a prediction on what might or might not happen for the day. So another thing to point out about the PGTI is it did take this nice little run up here. It's the biggest 5-minute candle all day, and it did put in kind of a hairy little wick up here. But the first thing that came to my mind when I peeled out a half of my position today was, okay, either include the wick or don't include the wick, depending on what you do most of the time. What I did is I just took the high right here, drew a line straight across, and set a limit alert. So as soon as it popped above that area right there, I did my feet back in the pool because the volume was okay, and this is a classic range break. Now, whether you include the wick or not, that's up to you. But once again, in the upcoming, right now this is only in beta, but if we take a look at the high of the candle, 1054, all we have to do is say right-click in the future, 1054, direction.
Just a reminder, what you're seeing there on the screen is a future release. It's not quite available yet. It's going to be out very soon. Am I correct on that?
Right, right. It's going to be in the, hopefully it's going to be in the release right now. Obviously 4.0 is the beta version. but when that migrates to production, which they say is going to be relatively soon, and I think that means somewhere around 2 weeks or so. Hopefully the limit alert functionality that you're seeing right here and the ability to program that via the chart should be in that production release.
I think the limit alert is also a great segue to talk about emotional trader, because when you're doing this kind of stuff in the evenings, maybe not so much in the heat of the day when your trader juices are flowing. Let's say you're looking at some daily charts and you see some levels of interest, whether it's a level of a pullback or a level of a breakout. It's really nice when Jamie right-clicks the mouse and can set a limit alert. You can set yourself a note. And what's nice about this is usually in the evening when you got your glass of wine or your beer or whatever and you're perusing through your charts, you don't have that trader's heartbeat going on. The bell's not rung, the market's closed, and you're seeing things in a more objective, less emotional state of mind. So you can always write a note to yourself saying, hey, this is unemotional Steve sending a message to during market hours, Steve, look, you liked this thing last night doing homework. Like it now. Don't start thinking about what could happen, what might not happen. Just take the trade, manage your risk, define your downside. So I think once that limit alert feature comes into full integration for everybody, you'll be able to get a lot of good use out of it, setting some triggers for the following trading going forward with a little message to yourself from your prior unemotional self to your current more emotional trading self. What might be a good move to take here based on your prior homework?
Absolutely. And as we continue to develop the product and come out with new features, just like we had this chart, which showed you the performance for Holly, and this will continue to be kept as the days and months and years progress. But we are also developing a new tool that hopefully everybody will have access to as well. So if everybody can see this screen pretty clearly, what we're doing is we're giving you the ability in the future to make some additional projections here on, okay, if I traded each one of these strategies, and you can see up here we're just running the whole date range. Strategy is any, which it's including all of the strategies, but we could select only one if that's what we want to do. And then we can say, okay, fixed share amount, dollar amount. In this instance, it's just saying, okay, if I did 100 shares per trade and my commission rate is this, how would I have done? And it'll plot out how you would have done for the strategies that you were engaging in, your commission rates, your starting equity, basically the same things that we can fold into the odds maker backtest results. We're going to give you guys the ability to manipulate and fold all this data the way you would want to see it when this actually goes to production. So we can go commission type per trade or per share, because a lot of you out there are on a fixed rate of say $4.95, $2.95, whatever that fixed rate is, and then some people are on a per share level. There's a lot of people out there trading on 0.001, which would be, well, actually that's too cheap. 0.005, right, Steve? That's 50 cents, 100 shares, or $5 for 1,000, right? And so we're just going to give you guys the ability to manipulate this data and really curtail it to how you want to trade. For example, if I say fixed dollar amount, well, then we could say, okay, what if I did $10,000 per trade? Or we can go, let's see here, based on stop loss distance. So if you're trading very volatile stuff, we can generate a completely different set of data. So just wanted to give you guys a little peek into what's coming. Steve, anything you want to add to this?
No, it's going to be more and more interactive for everybody to see and configure. Is very important because everybody's different. Not everybody trades the same amount of risk tolerance, same amount of shares, same amount of commission structure. So it'll help you custom tailor and see also which strategies are working well over the longer term. So you get more familiar with coming into the next day. If you see one that you know has been having a hot hand and has performed well and you're comfortable with, you have a better feel for. I did have one more little topic, because I know a lot of people do show up to these webinars to try and learn a few tidbits about trading in general, not just all about the ins and outs and bells and whistles of trade ideas and how trade ideas can help you spot alpha and um, uh, spot trading opportunities. For those of you that are day traders and get out of your positions 100% at the end of the day, every day, I think we all have in our mind that magic number that if I could just make X each day, if it's 500, if it's 1,000, if it's 2,000, it's a number that we all kind of get excited about as a possible daily profit target. And I want to put the emotional trader awareness back on here again, because this is something that I think can really help. Just like there's nothing really worse than being in a good stock that was going for you and you didn't take the profit and it reverses on you and goes negative and you've got nothing to show for it. The same can go throughout the trading day of all your baskets of trades. And one of the worst things that can happen is to hit that magic profit target that you like so much, but you don't protect it, and then you give the whole day back. That you'll spend the rest of the day thinking, oh, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? I should have done this. I should have done that. Well, I've been helping traders for many years. We had the Today Trader live room back in 2008 that went on for a few years. We also had the Ditto Trade account where we outperformed the S&P on a swing trading time frame. But when we had the day trading room, one of the things I always told everybody was don't give back the day that you had in your hands. That's just the worst feeling in the world. So we came up with something real simple called the 20% rule. And the whole idea is, if you're seeing the market and you're trading well, the last thing you want to do is hit your target and shut down after you made $1,000 if that was your target, because you might have left $2,000 on the table. You were obviously seeing things, you were going the right direction, you were doing the right things, so you want to continue to try and grind it out. But you really want to, at least I used to like to do this, when I was doing a lot of day trading, is you really want to protect what you have made. And the 20% rule allows you to do that. If you get to a point in the day where you hit your target, you say, oh, I've hit my target, I'm not going to give this back. 20% rule is in effect. I'm going to continue to trade like nothing's happened, but if I start to pull back or the market changes, the dynamics change, and I go from 1,000 down to 800, I'm going to shut it down, because there's nothing worse than going home with nothing after you had it booked and we're looking at it and feeling it and touching it and tasting it and spending it. It's a great psychological companion to be able to fight through that type of scenario, and having a 20% pullback allows you to continue to go home with some money, but most importantly, it allows you to continue fighting because you're doing something right on that day, and you really want to extend your probabilities as much as possible. So for those of you that maybe struggled in the past with big fluctuating days like that, trust me, it's so much more enjoyable at the end of the day and in the evening when you've bagged a good day and you've followed your rules and you've done what you're supposed to do, rather than giving it all back. That just can be demoralizing. A few days like that can start to weigh on you. So just wanted to share that. It was a 20% rule. I've had a lot of old students come and tell me that they still use that to this day, and I haven't shared that in this room yet, and I wanted to do that, and there you have it.
That's good, Steve. I am a disciple of that methodology myself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to throw this back up again one more time so everybody can get a good look at it, okay? And what I'd like for everyone to keep in mind is, this is just the beginning, all right? So if while we're releasing this new technology and at the same time tweaking it, making it better, and at the same time Holly's neural net is learning, what to do, what not to do, more importantly, what to do to increase this performance. So the takeaway is this. If we're doing this against the S&P in the first 45 days, 30 to 45 days, while tweaking the system, then, there's no guarantee of the future. But if we're achieving this type of performance this early on, well, then it gives me a lot of confidence to think that things are going to get much, much better as we progress. And what I'd like to drive home here is that knowledge base that Holly is acquiring, she's developing her neural network. It's like an infant learning, except that this infant learns at a rate which is exponential compared to a human infant. All right, so it's going to be very exciting moving forward. And I know people might be a little disconnected when they see all the trades coming in. They're like, well, it made money on this day overall, but it lost money on this day. How's it doing overall? Well, now you have a nice visual representation backed up by the hardcore statistics. So just keep that in mind. If this is what we're doing early on, imagine, what's going to happen moving forward as the neural network tightens up and, for lack of a better description, Holly gets smarter and smarter. All right? So I think it's probably a pretty good time to gravitate over to some specific questions, and let's talk about some of the coupon codes that we have and all that good stuff.
Yeah, how about anyone that has any questions, please start typing those into the chat to ask Jamie or Steve. And then if you want to throw that slide over to the one that shows our basic pricing, well, people are asking questions. I'll just run through this real quick. So,
Sure.
We're a software as a service company, and subscriptions are our core. So our basic subscription is the monthly. It's $99 a month, and it includes all of your data, the charting. Very importantly, it includes a full hour of one-on-one training, and we've made it super easy to sign up for. Just go to, as soon as you get an account at Trade Ideas, go to support section, click on training, and select your time that you prefer from the calendar. It automatically schedules that for you. The $888 annual, same thing, except it saves you a bundle. Instead of paying $99 a month all year long and that coming out to be around $11.99 at the end of the year, it's $888 for a full year, and you're grandfathered into that rate for whatever happens to our pricing. Now the AI comes in underneath what used to be called the odds maker license fee, and that's a one-time $1,100 cost, and it gets you full access to the odds maker backtesting. The AI channel lets you get full access to Holly, so you can find trades and strategies that are performing right now. You can also optimize your own strategies and get as much in depth into drilling down into what's making your strategy succeed or fail. And that is by using the oddsmaker tool. It's a great way to learn. I see some of you have started to ask some questions now, so I'll turn you back over to Jamie. We do have a product code available to all of you and a package, so I'll be talking about that shortly. If you want to preview that, you can look at the handouts panel in your GoToWebinar interface and download the PDF. I'll be back on in a little bit to talk about that. I see you've got some questions in there, so I'll let Jamie and Steve tackle those for you. Looks like
yeah, no problem. I'd muted myself and didn't know it. So Jeff was asking, is the AI and the models designed to be used in up, down, or sideways markets? And I guess the question there, or the answer to that question is yes. If I pop my screen back up here, let me just kind of reiterate for you newcomers, what is actually going on here? What has to happen for these strategies to make it, into the hopper for the trading day? Because tomorrow, we don't know which strategies are going to make the cut. Tomorrow, we might see 2 strategies in here. We might see 5 strategies. We just do not know yet. And to encapsulate how that process works is we have a core of about 40 strategies. And every night, our AI system, we've taught it how to do the optimization process. So it folds in today's market data and re-optimizes every strategy in what we call that collective quantitative combine. It's like football players. Only the best ones are going to make it for the next day. They're the only ones that are going to make the cut. So, that labor-intensive process that would, take us humans probably years and years to accomplish is done each and every night by our AI. So only the strategies that are that look the most conducive, statistically speaking, for the next day, and that make minimum scoring requirements on our scoring system. It's not all just about win percentage. There's a very elaborate scoring system that goes into play as well. So, since we never know what the market's going to do for the next day, these strategies are designed for the greatest statistical probability that's showing up for the next day. Now, what the market ends up doing, that's a whole nother topic. But the statistical probability is there each and every day. So I hope that answers the question. So is there a max amount of strategies that are allowed to make the cut? At present time, there is no established maximum. It's just the way that the numbers play out of a base group of 40 to 45 strategies. there's only, since we're folding in today's market data and then re-optimizing, which, as far as any other systems go, there's no other model of this nature currently in existence. It is the only one of its kind thus far. So, not only folding in today's day, but re-optimizing every strategy in the hopper before the next trading day starts, which, even with our AI cluster and all of our servers, is a multiple hour process. Sometimes it takes 2 hours, sometimes it takes 6 hours. Just depends on how much processing has to go on. Okay, Pac-Man, I don't really understand the question. It just says Ninja and TradeStation.
Oh, that was a
follow-up. What brokers? That was a broker question. I got it. Okay.
I just want to add too on the heels of Jamie talking about what Holly does every night. One thing that we do know is no strategy works forever. There's always going to be inefficiencies that make it work, and those market inefficiencies might close back up and that strategy goes stale, or we call it degradation. And we've seen over the years manually doing back testing killer strategies that work for a month or two and then they start to degrade as market dynamics change or directions change or we go into a sideways type market, what have you. There's a myriad of reasons why a strategy can degrade. But one of the hardest things to do before we had Holly was catch it as an individual trader, because the amount of time it takes to go back and re-optimize and recognize and score that this strategy might be starting to slow down and lose its hot hand, it's very difficult to do the way Holly does it with the thousands, hundreds of thousands of combinations each night that it's going through. So one of the things that I've noticed that's really cool about this system is that having to go through and reprove yourself every night to the engine and get a high score, that helps Holly weed out some of the ones that are losing their hot hand or starting to degrade much faster than I think a human eye ever could. And for that matter, recognize it and override your emotion towards, oh, God, I really like this strategy, but do I really want to kill it? Well, the numbers are telling you it's starting to die out. And, again, there's an unemotional factor that comes into play there. No strategy is going to work perfect every day all the time. They're going to ebb and flow, and Holly's really good at making them compete each night, improve themselves, that they are still in fact holding a hot hand.
Right, and Steve can attest to this because I've been in the market since the early to mid 90s. So we've seen and we've done a lot of stuff. We've tried just about everything that there ever has been as far as trading goes and platforms and things of that nature. And that is common with us, human traders, is that we will hang on to a strategy until the bitter end. Is that the wise thing to do? No, but we're creatures of habit. Now, statistical probability, as we all know, is not the holy grail, but it's the closest thing that we have. Right? So the important thing to realize here is the heavy lifting that's going on behind the scenes. Most people just see this, they're like, okay, these are the strategies for the day, but there's a little thing we call optimization. And let's say that we spent 2 or 3 hours just putting a base strategy together, and then we got some decent results. There might be some potential there. But then the optimization process starts. And we have the optimization tab within the odds maker that lets you go through and optimize manually. However, most of you have tried that process, realized that, wow, this is the second part of the equation, and there's a lot of work to be done. So, to put it into simple terms, you might sit there and try to optimize what you think is a good data set, and you might put 2-3 hours into it. And you might find a little bit of digital gold, and you might not. If you didn't, 3 hours down the tubes, try again tomorrow. Maybe by the end of the month, you will have put in 30-40 hours of optimization. Well, Holly not only is optimizing one strategy a night, but 40 strategies a night. And not only is she optimizing them once or twice or 3 or even 4 times each, but the total amount of trades that's being analyzed is pushing right now about 1 million with our current base. So just from a heavy lifting computational standpoint, what would have been impossible is now possible with this software, because this technology and some of the similar models to it have only been available to high-end hedge Bank of America and some of the other big banks. And now with what we've developed, it's available to you guys.
Go ahead and select the next question there, Jamie.
What do we got here? Can you modify price and volume settings in Holly? That's a very good question. Well, theoretically, you could, but then that strategy would cease to become what it is. Okay, so that's a very good point to bring up, is that every metric in every one of these strategies has been perfectly optimized by the system. So if we gave users the ability to go in there and change up minimum maximum price or anything, then all of a sudden it becomes something other than what it was. Statistical probability more than likely would plummet at that point in time. So, in the future, I can't really see an optimized strategy being modifiable by the end user, because it would just change things up completely. It would be, it would not be what it was originally designed to be, so then the numbers wouldn't reflect well. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so Valentina, if you email info@trade-ideas.com, we can deposit that volume radar into your cloud or send you the cloud link. You're probably referring to this guy right here. And this was a custom list that I built maybe a year ago, so it's not going to show up in your pre-configured strategies, but we'd be more than happy to get that over to you if you just email us at info@trade-ideas.com.
There was a question earlier, and it's a good process to show, especially for people who have the IA channel license. Peter was asking if you could click into one of the strategies to see the trades for today, and the one he asked about was selling into strength. However,
Sure.
there was only one trade, I believe.
Actually,
or maybe, I'm sorry, there was five.
There's five there, yeah.
You know what it was? Okay, I broke it down, under 20 and then over 20. And as a matter of fact, we actually looked at the numbers today in the back end. For some reason, and this will all become more known as we move forward and share more of this base strategy stuff with people, but we actually happen to know that selling into strength under 20 has been performing much better than selling into strength over 20. For whatever reason, we can try and figure it out, but the numbers are what the numbers are. So Jamie just basically showed how to click into that and spawn a list of the trades that were given.
Right, or we can always just right-click and say View All Trades, and then just double-click and sort by the strategy, so it just lines them all up. These are all you got what I need, selling into strength. Of course, here are all the marathon trades, and these guys only had one trade, or Float-On had more than one trade. But yeah, you can just group by any of these, resort by any of these columns across the top, just like the functionality in your alert windows and top list.
This is a tricky question. Can you take a deep dive into the logic contained within a strategy like power hour long? I'll let you have that one, Jamie.
Well, power hour long, typically if we jump in the Wayback Machine here, and I show my age by talking about how I traded in the late 90s, it was like this. You get there about 15 minutes before the open, you trade the first hour and a half, you go take lunch until the last hour of the market. You'd come back for the last hour of the market because you knew that there was probably going to be some movement there. First hour, last hour, if you watch volume metrics, the closer you get to the close, like for example, this top list right here, which is my volume radar, we're seeing, let's see here, my relative volume. Okay, well the market's closed, so we're getting a lot of zero values. But if you were watching this list towards the close, all of these volume levels on the smaller time frames would have just been off the hook. That's because that's the nature of the close. There's a lot of orders that have to get done and things of that nature. So the power hour long is predicated based on that active area, which is the last hour. So we've got a lot of different metrics that we can focus on for that. A lot of the times in the past, we've developed strategies based on, say, a random example would be buying and selling closing imbalances on the New York Stock Exchange, which all happen, I believe. Steve, I haven't done those in so long, but I think it's 15 minutes till the close. All right. So in the past, we were able to capitalize on things like that. Of course, as Steve said earlier, once they work for a while, the only assurance that you have is that they're going to stop working. So without going into too much detail about the inner workings of the current power hour long, and then sometimes power hour short makes the cut. Sometimes you see both of them in there. But basically, these are all looking at that last 1 hour and trying to come up with a statistical data set that tells us, okay, these are the ones that are most likely to move in the last hour. So a very specific data set, very specific alerts are being used. So we can't really dive deep down and go see those filters and alerts right now. But it is based on that last hour where there's always a volume spike. Once that last hour begins, the closer that we get to the close, the more the volume levels go up on the most actively traded. And then some of the volume levels aren't even on the most actively traded, but they're orders that have to get done for whatever reason. It's like, a market on close, which we call a MOC. And then you have market on open, which is a MOO, an MOO. So this is all geared towards those volume levels in the last hour. Right, Vince, yes. It does have a lot of volume criteria in there. Okay, so Jeff says what I'm saying does not make sense. That's not the first time I've heard that. Usually it's coming from my significant other. But right. So Jeff, the opening hour and the last hour are high volume areas most of the time. So based on the volume criteria that takes place typically in the first and last hour. All right, so yes, the market is closed. Holly's going to run her numbers tonight. Whether it's the power hour or any other one of these strategies, only the ones that make the cut from the scoring system are going to be determined to be on the screen tomorrow. Now, the base question was, can we dive down and look at the filters and the alerts in power hour long? Unfortunately, the answer is no to that. So I tried to give a little bit of, of an answer there, but the bottom line is no, we can't go down and look at the specific filters and alerts, unfortunately, at this time.
I was just answering the question that came through. Is there a way to trigger automatic trades through Holly, or is this just for alerts? At some point in the future, that's going to be the end game for some people that want to take this technology automated. For right now, no, but that's not to say in the future that's not coming, because we do plan on having that at some point. There will probably be some pilot groups that try this behind the scenes as a beta, but for now, we're basically teaching this engine to crawl before we try and ask it to walk quickly or run. So, earlier on, Jamie pointed out we had a bad day in one particular strategy, and that's not the kind of thing we want to release to the public until we've worked out a lot more of the kinks. And there's still a lot more to go and a lot more to learn before that time comes. So for now, it's just a alert system that you can use to trade around. And I'll quickly say too, don't get always so focused on the actual trade and the stock itself. Some days there are mornings when you wake up and we've got 4 longs and 4 shorts on the bench waiting to be deployed, ready to go. But the market doesn't trigger a certain batch, it's only triggering the longs. And maybe that's at a point in the day when the spiders are at a real inflection point of support or resistance, and you're not exactly sure which way we're going to go as you're wearing your trader's hat and you're seeing the things that you're accustomed to seeing. But you look down and all of a sudden this unemotional automated robot is kicking off nothing but shorts. And before you know it, the market starts to roll over and fall out of bed. I've seen that a few times on both directions, long and short. And to me, that's one of the more impressive ways to use this tool, is just to sit next to somebody who's a good trader and has no emotion and is seeing things that we don't see, many times seeing them quicker. And therefore, those trades are triggering because there's a lot of things happening underneath the scenes that we're not seeing until that whole situation comes to fruition, and the S&Ps will start to move as a group in one direction. I've been watching it for over a month now, and there's been about 4 or 5, maybe 6 days where I've been really impressed at not paying attention to the specific stock or even the specific strategy, but saying, hey, this is really interesting. We just had a nice big bounce here in the market. We're up into the resistance area, volume starting to dry out, and Holly's doing nothing but taking shorts, fading these moves as a contrarian. And lo and behold, a lot of times she's right. And so market direction is one tool that you can pay attention to as well and see what she's doing.
Right, and I'll make one more comment about that. And that's when people who are used to seeing, chart patterns, and that's primarily their their entry point is going to be based on what is that pattern doing. When it gets here, I'm going to buy it. When it gets here, I'm going to short it, right? But when you're getting used to watching a statistical model, a lot of the times that does not coincide. What it is recommending is not going to look real pretty on the chart, and it's going to be hard for us to take that trade, okay? But that can be easily overcome by repetition. By watching AI, by watching Holly, you will, by default, start to learn, okay? And not to shift gears too quickly here, but one of our users, Valentina, just pointed out the trade of the week that was recommended last week, which was EROS. So once again, those trades of the week are typically finding those basing stocks. And it's real easy, from a chart perspective to take a pop on one of these because you kind of know where your out is based on this daily chart here. So, last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you got that trade of the week. You're like, hey, this looks good. My risk isn't that bad. I can buy it anywhere. These are daily bars. And, of course, this is today. So if you would have put a long position in on EROS and use these bottom levels as your exit, nice risk area. And then look, lo and behold, today, EROS, opening bar here, runs up, takes its pullback, finishes close to highs today. Now, we're seeing the beginning of this move right here. If it gets strength tomorrow, all of you who have been watching the trend change lubricant factor top lists and listening to the trade of the week, this should look very familiar. It's doing exactly what we always, say that these trades have the potential to do. They've been beat up, risk is low, you're getting them close to the bottom. Maybe it has a small flow, maybe it doesn't, but when the buying comes in, you're already positioned and you can just, enjoy the ride.
Yeah, what I really like about those trend change lubricants, which are most of the time the trade of the week calls, is they're a pretty safe risk-reward bet. It's a stock that's looking for a trend change, which is never really, an easy thing to do, but the way in which Holly goes about it, it looks for a long period of consolidation, ideally 2 or 3 tests of that low, and those tests are failed. And what you start to happen here is you get the short sellers thinking, well, there's no more meat on this bone, it's time to start closing positions. And before you know it, you can get some nice low-risk entries out of those trend change type setups. So I'm happy to see that one did well.
Alrighty. Well, Scott, any other slides you'd like me to put back up here?
How about the specials?
All right.
I want to direct people to the handouts panel. Oh, actually, I didn't put one in this morning. Never mind. But anyways, if you use this code Holly3, what that does is it lets you take half off your first month, 20% off your first year, or 25% off the entire lifetime AI license. The code is good until Friday in the business. It's just a little something we like to do to thank everyone for showing up here today. So just go to tradeIdeas.com, click on plans and pricing, select your plan, and use Holly3, all capitals. The biggest savings, though, is on the next slide, and that's our combo that is going away on the 16th. We are taking Holly out of beta and into production. And when we do that, we're going to take this offer down, which is an instant $700 savings that we're offering while it's in beta. It's essentially getting the AI for free. The AI requires the $1,100 license. Our standard subscription is $99 a month. So getting that down to $1,288 is basically getting AI for free, and you've got it for life, and then you're grandfathered in at $888. The way to get there is to go to the link you see on the screen, which is bit.ly AI Holly. And it is case sensitive, so do keep that in mind. But it lets you go to a page where you can click through and purchase both the year and the lifetime AI license together in one go. Saves you $700. It's a great upgrade for those of you who are on the monthly plan and paying $99 or still maybe on the $75 a month plan. Lets you get into the new technology before we change the pricing. Again, thanks everyone for joining us today. There'll be a video recording of this sent to you. Well, you're actually going to get a link to the playlist while this will be up, but you'll get that between now and this time tomorrow. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Jamie. If you saw any scans you want, email info@trade-ideas.com. We'll add them to your account. Some of them do require custom formulas, which is why we do it that way. Again, thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great week trading.
Yep. Thanks all.
See you Thursday.